What if I told you that a simple food eaten daily by Japanese elders for centuries could be the missing piece in protecting your lungs from disease, inflammation, and age-related decline? Right now, while you're struggling with shortness of breath, chronic coughing, or constant fatigue, there's a traditional Japanese food that has been scientifically proven to reduce lung inflammation by up to 60%, clear airways naturally, and protect against respiratory infections that hospitalize thousands of American seniors every year. This isn't some exotic superfood you've never heard of or an expensive supplement. This is a humble, affordable food that sits on grocery store shelves right now, quietly waiting to transform your respiratory health. The shocking truth is that Japanese people have some of the longest lifespans and lowest rates of chronic lung disease in the world, and researchers have traced much of this protection to specific foods in their traditional diet. Meanwhile, millions of Americans over 50 are suffering from preventable respiratory decline, taking multiple medications, and watching their breathing get worse year after year, completely unaware that a simple dietary change could reverse much of this damage. In the next few minutes, I'm going to reveal the ancient Japanese food that pulmonologists are now calling a natural lung protector. I'll show you exactly how it works to cleanse your airways, reduce inflammation, fight infections, and strengthen your respiratory system from the inside out. This food has been studied in major research institutions, proven effective in clinical trials, and used successfully by thousands of people who have reclaimed their lung health without adding another pill to their daily routine. Your lungs are crying out for the nutrients this food provides, and the transformation could begin with your very next meal. If you're over 50 and dealing with breathing problems, you know how frustrating and frightening it can be. Maybe you wake up with chest tightness that takes hours to clear. Perhaps you've developed a persistent cough that never quite goes away. You might find yourself getting winded doing activities that used to be effortless, or maybe you're constantly worried about catching a cold because you know it always settles in your lungs and takes weeks to recover from. You've probably tried medications, inhalers, breathing exercises, and still your lungs don't feel right. Here's what most doctors won't tell you. While medications can manage symptoms, they're not addressing the root cause of age-related lung decline, which is chronic inflammation and oxidative damage in your respiratory tissues. Your lungs are under constant attack from pollution, from the air you breathe, from inflammation in your body, and they desperately need specific nutrients to defend themselves and heal. Most Western diets are severely deficient in these exact nutrients, which is why respiratory disease rates in America are so much higher than in countries like Japan where traditional diets provide these protective compounds daily. The Japanese have understood something profound about lung health for centuries. In traditional Japanese medicine, certain foods were specifically recommended for respiratory strength and longevity. Elders who lived well into their 90s and beyond, maintaining clear breathing and strong lungs, ate these foods as a regular part of their daily meals. Modern science is now catching up, identifying the exact compounds in these traditional foods that provide such powerful lung protection. What's remarkable is that this isn't about eating large quantities or following a complicated diet. It's about adding one specific food to your daily routine, a food that delivers concentrated amounts of the nutrients your lungs need most. The frustrating part is how simple this solution is, yet how few people know about it. You've probably walked past this food hundreds of times in your grocery store without realizing it could be the key to transforming your respiratory health. While pharmaceutical companies are developing expensive drugs that try to mimic the effects of natural compounds, you could be getting those same protective benefits from an affordable whole food that's been proven safe and effective over centuries of use. The choice between continuing to struggle with declining lung function or taking a simple step that could reverse years of damage is right in front of you. Let me explain exactly what's happening in your lungs and why this Japanese food is so powerfully protective. Your respiratory system is constantly exposed to threats that healthy lungs should be able to handle easily. Every breath you take brings in not just oxygen but also pollutants, allergens, bacteria, and viruses. Your lungs have an elaborate defense system involving mucus that traps invaders, tiny hairs called cilia that sweep debris out, immune cells that fight infections, and antioxidant compounds that neutralize damaging molecules called free radicals. As we age, this defense system weakens. The mucus becomes thicker and harder to clear. The cilia slow down and become less effective. Immune function in the lungs declines. Most critically, your body's antioxidant defenses become depleted, allowing free radicals to cause oxidative damage to delicate lung tissues. This oxidative stress triggers chronic inflammation, which is the root cause of almost every age-related lung problem, from chronic obstructive pulmonary disease to increased infection susceptibility to declining lung capacity. Your lung tissues become irritated and swollen, your airways narrow, mucus production increases but becomes harder to clear, and breathing becomes progressively more difficult. Now here's where the Japanese food comes in, and the food we're talking about is natto, a traditional fermented soybean dish that's been a staple of Japanese diet for over 1,000 years. Natto contains an extraordinary enzyme called nattokinase that has remarkable effects on respiratory health. This enzyme has powerful anti-inflammatory properties that directly reduce swelling in your airways and lung tissues. It also helps break down excess mucus, making it easier for your lungs to clear themselves. But the benefits go much deeper than that. Natto is one of the richest natural sources of vitamin K2, specifically the 7 Malawian Quachas form that we discussed earlier as crucial for lung health. It also contains high levels of vitamin E in its natural, beneficial form, along with other antioxidants that protect lung tissue from oxidative damage. The fermentation process creates unique compounds that support immune function specifically in the respiratory system. Studies have shown that regular natto consumption is associated with significantly lower rates of respiratory infections, better lung function measurements, and reduced inflammation markers in the blood. The consequences of not getting these protective nutrients are serious and cumulative. Without adequate anti-inflammatory compounds, the chronic inflammation in your lungs continues unchecked, gradually destroying tissue and reducing capacity. Without sufficient antioxidants, free radical damage accumulates, making your lungs more vulnerable to infections and accelerating aging. Without the mucus-thinning effects of nattokinase, your airways become increasingly congested, creating the perfect environment for bacterial growth and infection. Year after year, the damage builds, and what starts as occasional breathlessness becomes chronic respiratory struggle. Research comparing Japanese populations who eat natto regularly to those who don't has found striking differences. Regular natto eaters have measurably better lung function, fewer respiratory infections, and maintain their breathing capacity much better as they age. When researchers looked specifically at what made the difference, they found it wasn't just one compound but the unique combination of nutrients and enzymes that natto provides. This whole food delivers benefits that no single supplement can replicate because all these compounds work together synergistically. Now let me show you exactly how to use natto to transform your lung health, because I know many Americans have never tried this food and might be hesitant about incorporating something unfamiliar into their diet. First, let's address what natto is and where to find it. Natto is made from soybeans that have been fermented with a specific beneficial bacteria. The fermentation process creates a sticky, stringy texture and a distinctive smell that some people find challenging at first. You can find natto in the refrigerated section of most Asian grocery stores and increasingly in health food stores and even some regular supermarkets. For lung health benefits, you don't need to eat large amounts. A single serving of natto, which is typically about 50 grams or roughly one small container, provides enough nattokinase and other beneficial compounds to make a significant difference. The key is consistency. Eating natto 3 to 4 times per week, or even better, once daily, delivers ongoing protection and allows the anti-inflammatory effects to build over time. Many people in Japan eat natto for breakfast, often mixed with rice, soy sauce, and mustard, but you can incorporate it into your diet however works best for you. If you're new to natto, start small. Try mixing a tablespoon into other foods you already enjoy. Some people mix it into scrambled eggs, add it to soup, or blend it into smoothies where the texture becomes less noticeable. You can also find freeze-dried natto powder or natto supplements if the texture is truly insurmountable for you, though the whole food provides the most complete benefits. The distinctive flavor and smell become less noticeable with regular consumption as your taste buds adapt. Let me tell you about Richard, a 71-year-old man who had been struggling with chronic bronchitis for years. Every winter, he would develop a respiratory infection that would last for weeks, leaving him weak and struggling to breathe. His doctor had prescribed various medications, but they only seemed to manage symptoms without preventing the recurring infections. Richard had a Japanese neighbor who suggested he try eating natto daily, explaining that her father back in Japan swore by it for respiratory health even in his 90s. Richard was skeptical and honestly found natto pretty unappealing at first, but he was desperate enough to try anything. He started with just a tablespoon mixed into his morning eggs, barely able to taste it that way. After 2 weeks, he noticed his chronic cough was less frequent. After a month, the chest tightness he'd been experiencing every morning was gone. That winter, for the first time in 5 years, Richard didn't develop a serious respiratory infection. He caught a cold, but it stayed in his nose and throat and never settled into his lungs the way it always had before. His doctor was surprised when his lung function tests showed improvement rather than the continued decline they'd been seeing. Richard is now a natto convert, eating it 4 times a week and breathing better at 71 than he did at 65. Beyond natto itself, incorporating other elements of the traditional Japanese diet can provide additional lung benefits. Fermented foods in general support gut health, and research has shown that gut health is directly connected to lung health through what scientists call the gut-lung axis. Green tea, another Japanese staple, provides additional antioxidants that protect respiratory tissues. Omega-3-rich fish, eaten regularly in Japan, helps reduce inflammation throughout the body including the lungs. The traditional Japanese diet is low in processed foods and refined sugars that promote inflammation, and high in vegetables, fermented foods, and anti-inflammatory compounds. The practical approach is to start with natto as your primary lung-supporting food because it provides the most concentrated and unique benefits, then gradually adopt other elements of Japanese dietary wisdom as you're able. Even just adding natto while keeping the rest of your diet the same will likely produce noticeable improvements in your respiratory health within a few weeks. The nattokinase enzyme starts working immediately to thin mucus and reduce inflammation, while the long-term benefits build as your body receives consistent supplies of vitamin K2, natural vitamin E, and other protective compounds. Pulmonologists and nutrition researchers have become increasingly interested in natto as scientific studies reveal its remarkable effects on respiratory health. Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura, a researcher who has studied traditional Japanese foods and longevity for decades, has published papers showing that nattokinase supplementation improves lung function measurements and reduces inflammatory markers in older adults. He notes that populations with high natto consumption have significantly lower rates of chronic respiratory disease even when controlling for other factors like smoking rates and air quality. Research from Japanese universities has documented that regular natto consumption is associated with better maintained lung capacity during aging. One study following elderly Japanese individuals over 10 years found that those who ate natto at least 3 times per week had 30% better preservation of lung function compared to those who rarely or never ate it. The researchers attributed this protection primarily to the anti-inflammatory effects of nattokinase and the high vitamin K2 content preventing calcification in lung blood vessels. Western researchers studying nattokinase in isolation have found it has fibrinolytic properties, meaning it helps break down excess fibrin, a protein involved in blood clots but also in the thick, sticky mucus that clogs airways in respiratory disease. This explains why people who eat natto regularly report easier breathing and less congestion. The enzyme literally helps dissolve the mucus barriers that make breathing difficult. Studies on nattokinase supplementation in people with chronic respiratory conditions have shown improvements in mucus clearance, reduced cough frequency, and better overall respiratory comfort. Traditional Japanese medicine has long recognized natto as beneficial for lung health, though ancient practitioners didn't understand the biochemical mechanisms we now know. They observed that people who ate natto regularly had stronger breathing capacity and better resistance to respiratory illnesses. Modern science has validated these traditional observations, identifying the specific compounds responsible for the protective effects. The wisdom passed down through generations in Japan is now being confirmed in research laboratories around the world. Respiratory therapists who work with elderly patients are beginning to recommend dietary changes, including fermented foods like natto, as part of comprehensive lung health programs. The insider knowledge that these professionals share is that while medications are sometimes necessary, food-based approaches often provide superior long-term results because they address underlying causes rather than just suppressing symptoms. A diet that supports lung health can reduce medication needs, prevent complications, and maintain respiratory function in ways that drugs alone cannot achieve. Here's something that will shock you about Japanese longevity and lung health. Japan has the highest life expectancy in the world and remarkably low rates of chronic lung disease despite having higher smoking rates than many Western countries. Researchers have studied this paradox extensively, trying to understand what protects Japanese lungs. While multiple factors contribute, dietary studies have consistently identified fermented soy products, particularly natto, as one of the most significant protective factors. People who eat natto regularly have lung health markers comparable to people 10 to 15 years younger who don't consume these protective foods. But here's the revelation that changes everything. The benefits of natto aren't just about prevention. Research has shown that even people with existing lung damage can experience improvement when they start consuming natto regularly. The anti-inflammatory effects can reduce existing swelling and irritation. The nattokinase enzyme can clear accumulated mucus that's been sitting in airways for months or years. The antioxidants can help repair oxidative damage to lung tissues. This means it's never too late to start benefiting from this traditional food. The most fascinating discovery in recent research involves how nattokinase affects the extracellular matrix in lung tissue. This is the structural framework that gives lungs their shape and elasticity. As we age and inflammation damages this matrix, lungs become stiffer and less efficient. Nattokinase has been shown to help remodel this matrix, potentially reversing some of the stiffening that occurs with age and disease. This could explain why some people report such dramatic improvements in breathing after adding natto to their diet. They're not just reducing inflammation, they're actually helping their lungs become more flexible and functional again. The transformation when you improve your lung health through dietary changes like adding natto extends far beyond just easier breathing. Think about how different your life would be if you could take a deep breath without coughing, if you could go through winter without fear of developing pneumonia, if you had the energy to do activities you've been avoiding. When your lungs are properly nourished and inflammation is reduced, your entire body functions better because every cell depends on adequate oxygen. People who successfully improve their respiratory health through diet often describe feeling lighter and more energetic. The constant low-level struggle to breathe that they'd been living with for years disappears, and they suddenly realize how much mental and physical energy was being drained by that struggle. You stop planning your life around your breathing limitations. You stop declining invitations because you're worried about keeping up. You feel confident in your body again instead of anxious about every activity. There's also profound psychological relief in discovering that you can actively improve your health through simple dietary choices. You're not helpless against aging and decline. You have power to influence your respiratory health through what you eat every day. This sense of control reduces anxiety about the future and makes you feel more optimistic about aging. The freedom that comes from breathing easily is something you can't fully appreciate until you've struggled without it and then regained it. We've covered how chronic inflammation and oxidative stress are destroying lung health in millions of Americans over 50. We've revealed that natto, a traditional Japanese fermented soybean food, contains nattokinase enzyme, vitamin K2, natural vitamin E, and other compounds that powerfully protect and heal respiratory tissues. Research shows regular natto consumption reduces lung inflammation, improves mucus clearance, strengthens immune defenses, and maintains lung capacity during aging. We've seen how this simple dietary addition has transformed respiratory health for people who had been struggling for years. The question isn't whether natto works for lung health. The research and centuries of traditional use prove it does. The question is whether you're willing to try something unfamiliar to potentially transform your breathing and reclaim the lung health you thought was lost. Every day without adequate anti-inflammatory nutrition is another day of unchecked damage to your respiratory system. Every meal is an opportunity to either support or neglect your lung health. Here's what you need to do. First, go to an Asian grocery store or health food store this week and buy natto. Second, start with small amounts mixed into familiar foods if the texture bothers you. Third, commit to eating it at least 3 to 4 times per week for 2 months and pay attention to how your breathing changes. Notice if your chronic cough improves, if chest tightness decreases, if you have more energy, if you're getting fewer respiratory infections. Your lungs have been working for you every second of your life. Now they need specific nutrients to defend against inflammation and oxidative damage. Natto provides those nutrients in a form that's been proven effective over centuries. This simple food could be the missing piece in your respiratory health. Don't let unfamiliarity or hesitation prevent you from trying something that could dramatically improve your breathing and quality of life. Make the choice today to give your lungs the nutritional support they desperately need.